Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the webinar on the Cefiderocol Access project. Where are we now? We have organized this webinar to update you on this project, to give you some insights and share our experience with this very fascinating project. To be able to share our experience, we have a very interesting panel discussion with all the relevant players, all the players who are involved in this project. You can see the names on the slide, and I'm going to introduce them later today. I would also invite you to send in any questions you may have. You will find, or you should see on your screen, on the top right window, top right in your window, you can see it here on the slide that we are just sharing, this feature that you can insert questions, so that then I can share these questions with the panelists, and hopefully they will be able to answer them. And without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to my dear colleague Rahul Dwivedi. Rahul is our Serious Bacterial Infections Access Leader at GARDP, and he is leading this project within our organization. So he is the one who is going to give you a brief introduction on the project, so that you know where we started from, where we are today. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome to everyone who wants to learn more about the project, wants to learn about our journey till now. So it all started back in June 2022 when Shionogi signed a license and technology transfer agreement with GARDP, allowing us the opportunity and the ability to manufacture and distribute Cefiderocol across 135 countries, comprising largely the low and middle income world. At the same time, GARDP, Shionogi, and the Clinton Health Access Initiative, we also signed a collaboration agreement to action various work streams within this project, and to make sure that we are able to enable access for this important antibiotic across GARDP territories. Subsequently, in September 2023, we found Orchid Pharma earlier through a competitive bid and RFP process. And in September 2023, we signed a manufacturing sublicense with Orchid Pharma. And Orchid is one of the world's largest manufacturers of cephalosporin. We will be identifying commercial and distribution partners that will help us enable product access across GARDP territories, and that is a process that is currently ongoing. So the project has various work streams, but I would like to bring the audience's attention to two primary work streams. One is on the manufacturing side, where there is a technology transfer that is currently happening from Shionogi to Orchid Pharma, and is being facilitated by the Clinton Health Access Initiative and supported by GARDP. Orchid Pharma is in the process of building a new finished dosage form facility and is procuring specialized equipment that will enable them to manufacture Cefiderocol. And down the line, will be producing the test batches, etc., that are necessary for regulatory submissions. A key pillar of our regulatory work stream would be submission of a regulatory dossier for WHO pre-qualification. But even ahead of that, even ahead of us receiving the pre-qualification, hopefully, we would be registering this product across key Wave 1 countries that don't require the PQ certification itself. And all of this work and the work that we're doing across other work streams will help us enable patient access in select countries. So I would now like to invite you to watch a video that we are unveiling for the first time. This was a video that summarizes our journey on this project, and was shot last year in November at Orchid's facilities in Chennai.
Our entire team in Orchid have very strong experience. Their domain knowledge is only cephalosporins. It is in our gene, it is our DNA. Cefiderocol is a kind of very complex chemistry. In Orchid, this is first time we are going to handle this much large number of stages for a single product.
And I don't think it would have been possible to manufacture the product outside of Japan without the support of Shionogi. So I think their support is very, very important technologically.
Orchid is constructing the state-of-the-art API manufacturing facility for Cefiderocol.
Cefiderocol is very sensitive product to the temperature and as well as light. So that is the reason that it has to be handled in a sensitive manner. Storing at low temperature has to be maintained for this product.
With the World Health Organization's WHO pre-qualification program to open up a call for applications for this product, Cefiderocol. This is the first time the WHO pre-qualification program has actually opened a call for antibiotics to treat drug-resistant infections. And that's really critical because it not only opens the pathway for Cefiderocol, but for other drugs that treat antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
This project is probably close to my heart because I've seen people dying due to superbugs which are resistant to most of the antibiotics that are available right now in India. And I don't think the product would be available to the people in India and other countries, other LMIC countries, without this kind of a partnership.
Thank you so much to my colleagues for playing the video and also for producing it. It's the second time I'm seeing it and I really love it. It gives a good overview of the project. I love also the colleagues who are featured in it. Thank you so much for contributing and for being there. And now I'm happy to introduce the panel, and we have one very important partner who you've seen in the video. I mean, you have all of them, but I wanted to introduce first Manish Dhanuka, who is the managing director of Orchid Pharma. Thank you so much for joining us from India. And of course, we have our partner who is managing the tech transfer from the Clinton Health Action Initiative. I better say CHAI. Melynda Watkins is the senior director for product development, quality, costing, and regulatory affairs. Thank you so much, Melynda, for joining. And last but not least, we have Monika Schneider, who's the director of the Global Antimicrobial Resistance Policy Department at Shionogi. And I wanted to start with you, Monika, with the first question, because of course, as I think Rahul said, and also it was in the video, I mean, without you, we would never have started this project. So what is your motivation as a company to actually to invest your time and effort in such a project?
Sure. Thanks, Peter. And before I get directly to your question, I just want to give a little background for those of you who may not be familiar with Shionogi. We are a mid-sized pharmaceutical company with headquarters in Japan and subsidiaries in the US, EU, and a few other countries. We've long been active in the infectious disease space and have discovered, developed, and commercialized 7 antibiotics, as well as creating antiviral drugs for HIV, influenza, and COVID. So the reason that we are engaged in this project and why it's so important to us is because we recognize that while access issues are a challenge and something that impacts countries of all income levels, the burden of AMR and the lack of available antibiotic treatments is one that disproportionately impacts low and middle income countries and patients in those countries. But access is something that has been historically challenging to do, and we see that there's limited antibiotic access around the globe. And this is because of several different reasons. First, there are complex regulations. And then there's need to ensure proper pharmacovigilance and compliance in different countries, which requires a lot of resources and people to follow up on those. The supply chain can be complicated and unstable in some places, and there can be a potential for diversion of product. And there are complex economics on both the buyer and supplier side, and this includes having uncertain demand for how much product is actually needed in different places. So on top of those challenges, Shionogi, being a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, has a limited presence and a limited footprint globally. Some of the other products that we've have been commercialized through either license agreements or partnerships, so we don't have a presence in many LMICs or most LMICs. We also have a limited manufacturing capacity, and because manufacturing antibiotics requires dedicated facilities and special equipment to minimize cross-contamination, expanding that capacity could perhaps require building new facilities, which, as we are going to hear more about, takes time and effort as well. So for us, it really made sense to look for external collaborations and for partners who had experience both in bringing products to LMICs, but also who understood the unique challenges in enabling patient access to a reserve antibiotic. And we really think that we found the right partners in GARDP and CHAI and now Orchid. And so through this collaboration, we are hoping that we are able to provide expanded, accelerated, and sustainable access to Cefiderocol in countries and regions that typically have delayed availability to new antibiotics, if any. And we are hoping that, or we recognize that we need to achieve these goals and access while also maintaining stewardship and appropriate use to avoid an increase in resistance as we move forward. So ultimately, we hope that we are able to serve as a foundation for other access initiatives and can do this hopefully by seeing what works in addressing some of the common access challenges and then feeding back our lessons learned to others.
Thank you so much, Monika, for this comprehensive answer. I think it gives us a really good idea also on where you come from as a company and why you have gone down this road. I wanted to turn to Manish. I mean, you are the one who is actually, doing it, and we saw it in the video. I mean, you built the API facility. Now you actually broke ground to do the finished dosage facility that you're building from scratch in your compounds. And we have heard from you already in the video a little bit, what is your motivation? But I'm sure that they have cut you in the video and your answer was actually much longer. So maybe you can share the part that they didn't put in the video with us.
Yeah, so I'd also like to give a brief introduction about Orchid Pharma before I answer your question. So Orchid Pharma is a company based out of Chennai, India, and I can say it's been a pioneer in developing and manufacturing of cephalosporin antibiotics. We probably have one of the largest range of antibiotics, cephalosporins especially, that we manufacture and export to countries across the world. These are manufactured at our large 60-acre complex located in Chennai. This facility is approved by US FDA, the European agencies, the PMDA Japan, and other SRAs. I'm also proud to inform that we have the distinction of being the only Indian company which has been able to develop a new chemical entity that has been approved by both US FDA as well as Europe. This molecule is called N-metazobactam. It's a BLI, which has been combined with cefepime to form the drug product. And we recently introduced this product in India. And I'm happy to announce that the results are very encouraging. And we hope that this product can actually help in sparing the use of meropenem, which was being widely used for antibiotics for infections which were just resistant to first line of antibiotics. And hopefully introduction of this molecule can result in probably reducing the development of resistance to meropenem, which is very, very essential towards addressing the antimicrobial resistance. So besides the reasons that I already said in the interview, I think this project is dear to us for two reasons. We as a company, Orchid Pharma, like to accept challenges, and I can say without any doubt that Cefiderocol development and manufacturing is probably the most challenging project we have taken till now. It's one of the most complex cephalosporin molecules that I have encountered in my 25 years of experience, and it would not have been possible or very, very difficult to manufacture this product without the support from Shionogi. So we are extremely thankful to Shionogi and their team for supporting us with all the technical package and all their support in answering our questions. Lastly, as a company engaged in antibiotics, we are committed to addressing the challenges of antimicrobial resistance. And I think there's no better way to address this problem than to provide access to the world to Cefiderocol.
Thank you so much, Manish. And I'm very happy that you also mentioned your success in actually developing a new BLI and launching it in not only in the US but also in India. So congratulations on that. That is really encouraging to see actually innovation in the area of new antibiotics coming out of India. Melynda, for CHAI, I think in the video it was said that you are facilitating the tech transfer. So can you tell us what that means actually?
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Perhaps following on a bit of an introduction on CHAI, we're the Clinton Health Access Initiative. We work with groups around the world, including pharmaceutical companies, of course, to bring access to essential medicines to people in low and middle income countries that is affordable access. So for this particular project, I lead the product development, quality, costing, and regulatory affairs team, as you introduced earlier, Peter. And my team is comprised of people with significant experience in pharmaceutical development. And so at CHAI, we have quite a long history of working at the intersection of innovators as well as generic companies, and really providing that assistance to to translate the transfer of technology. And there's each company, has their own personalities, I would say. And there are the requirements, of course, for innovator drug development as well as generic drug development. And so our role is really to make sure that the requirements are being met. Orchid obviously very well placed to do that, but also that it's translated appropriately from the work that Shionogi did when they originally developed the product. So we are a facilitator. We bring a level of experience in API and FDF development to really be able to engage in the program technically and therefore plan for the future for success with the regulatory submissions that will come.
Thank you, Melynda, and we are so glad to have you in the project, because without you, we would not be able to actually do the tech transfer. I wanted to turn back to Manish, and I think, come back on the video where I think your colleague is saying that cephalosporins, it's in your DNA. It's certain that you're doing it. You said you're one of the companies that has the biggest portfolio. So can you tell us a little bit about why this project is so special and so difficult? You said, I think in the video and now also, that you would not have managed without the tech transfer from Shionogi, or without the technical assistance. And I want to put this in context. You hear so much about the 100-day mission, that in 100 days you can now, start producing vaccines. So tell us a little bit about what are the difficulties you have to overcome.
Yeah. So one thing that we have to keep in mind, that cephalosporins are a class of semi-synthetic molecules. So that makes them highly unstable, sensitive to temperature, and that makes overall synthesis of cephalosporins largely difficult. More so in the current context of the regulatory agencies being very, very stringent with respect to impurities and overall requirement of qualifying all the impurities and ensuring that the levels are very, very low. So, but when we come to this project, we should look at it in 3 stages. First is the manufacturing of the API, and from my experience of 25 years in cephalosporins, I can say that this is right on top when it comes to the complexity in terms of the process and the long synthesis required, the number of stages that requires to manufacture Cefiderocol. The second would come in the form of the FDF. So here Cefiderocol is a vial lyophilized product. And if you were to classify all types of the FDFs, let's say starting from tablets, capsules, liquid injections, dry powder injections, I think lyophilization of products in a vial is probably the most complicated and difficult form of FDF. Now, we could have manufactured, if it was not a cephalosporin, this product could have been manufactured in any existing vial lyophilization facility. But being a cephalosporin, there are regulatory restrictions with respect to cross-contamination, and it can only be manufactured in a facility dedicated to cephalosporins. And to the best of my knowledge, there are no vial lyophilization facilities existing outside of Japan. Therefore, there is a need to create a brand new facility which can do vial lyophilization of Cefiderocol. Now, if it were to be just here, that would be fine. But if we look at the third part of this question, it's about the facility. So the facility that is required, once we understood the process, we realized that the facility that is required to manufacture the lyophilized vials of Cefiderocol itself is much more complex than any other vial lyophilization facility. And that's because of the nature of the product, which is highly sensitive to temperature and to humidity. Therefore, the entire process of manufacturing of the vials is carried out at a very low temperature and under very low humidity. In order to do this, we need very critical equipments, which very few vendors in the world can actually supply. This results in us going to those 1 or 2 vendors who could supply these equipment, and their lead times are very, very long. So the long deliveries of these equipment suppliers are leading to the long lead time for the overall project. I hope I have been able to answer your question properly.
I think so. Yes, I really I remember. I think the what you just said, that buying. I mean, there's so few vendors for actually building up this manufacturing line in the qualities that you need. And I remember then when we discussed before the long lead times and negotiating reductions, and that this is one of the main reasons as well. I had a question in the chat also. Somebody asked what controls need to be put in place to manufacture beta-lactam APIs in final dosage forms. I think you answered it when you referred to the risk of cross-contamination, and that you need to actually build a separate line and have a separate building dedicated to this product. So Melynda, maybe you can add from your perspective on what you have done. So many tech transfer projects for HIV products, for CHAI with CHAI. So you have a lot of projects you can compare to. So how is this one actually special in comparison to the small molecule project you did before?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I think Manish outlined quite well a lot of the technical complexities for this program. So you have, one added on top of the next, added on top of the next. And Orchid is very well placed to address these challenges. But I think everyone has to recognize that it results in a longer time period than we may desire, particularly with things like equipment lead time, which is completely out of our control. But if I compare it to other programs that we've done, we've had many different programs, largely in, quite straightforward solid oral dosage forms that do not require specialized handling due to the nature of the molecule, that do not require super specialized equipment in order to manufacture the FDF. But I think keeping in mind that, this program is going to result in bringing a seriously needed antibiotic to those people in low and middle income countries, we just need to keep marching through the challenges. And I think that, every program brings its own set of challenges. But I think I would definitely commend the team thus far in really trying to manage through those. As Manish mentioned, not only is it the specialized equipment required to manufacture the FDF, it's the temperature and humidity controls that are required. And as was noted earlier and in the video, Orchid is in Chennai, India, not a cool and low humid place. So you add that additional layer. So really every point we reach, it's a challenge. We come together as a team and we overcome that challenge and continue to move forward. So for that, I'm very grateful to all that are involved in the program.
Thank you, Melynda. And I have a follow-up question, because somebody from the audience is asking, he wants to understand, or she wants to understand more about the specific role of CHAI in the tech transfer process between the innovator and the licensee. So maybe you can say a little bit about what are you actually doing? What is your role? And how does it work?
What do we do? Well, I guess, there is a large component of project management and communications to make sure that the information that Shionogi provides, which is in many cases provided in Japanese, because that's how Shionogi have developed the process. A lot of their technical information is in Japanese, so it requires some translation into English, and then really working through that with the Orchid technical team to make sure that there is an understanding of what's required. Orchid has developed many cephalosporins, and they understand that the chemistry is complex, But what our view towards the tech transfer is to make sure that all of the requirements that they will be subject to when this goes into the various regulatory reviews are met. So we're trying to build that in very early so that we can accelerate at the end. So we're always looking at the end product of the regulatory dossier that then we will make sure all of the technical information feeds into it. And, you know, we bring a level of experience in pharmaceutical development that I hope at least is very helpful to both teams, and managing, again, the translation, if you will, between what an innovator pharmaceutical company does during their development program, which is quite different from what a generic company is required to do during their development program. And so making sure that there's an understanding across that table of what the actual requirements are in each instance, because things are done slightly differently, but all of it is done to a level to achieve quality assurance.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melynda. And I think you highlighted a very important point that you are actually forward-looking, and you do this. I mean, you're managing this project with us in a way that we already prepare the regulatory approval, of course, with the colleagues from Orchid, so that we hopefully that this is going to be a smooth ride. I wanted to ask you, Rahul. I mean, you are the overall project manager. So what do you want to share with us? What did you learn? And as Melynda said, I mean, CHAI has done a lot of tech transfer projects. For us, it's the first time we're doing it. So basically, it's all new to us.
Yes, indeed, Peter. It is new to us, and you know, in many ways, it is the Cefiderocol Access project. We call it as a Pathfinder initiative because we wish to, you know, take the learnings from this project and then implement those learnings across other antibiotics within our portfolio, as well as make those learnings available for the rest of the world to also replicate when they're looking to manufacture and introduce new antibiotics. And in that vein of it being a Pathfinder initiative, often when I reflect on what are some of my key learnings or understanding in this project, it is a lot to do with you know, working across different cultures and time zones. We don't necessarily appreciate how challenging or how you know, confusing it can sometimes be. And a clear example is earlier this year we were hosted by our colleagues at Shionogi in Osaka, where we had colleagues from Shionogi Japan, we had colleagues from Shionogi US, we had the Orchid team from India, we had Clinton Health Access and Melynda's team that's largely based in the US, and then we had GARDP from, you know, people from India, people from Europe, and just making sure that, you know, all of these individuals, all of these experts from different backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds, from different cultural contexts, are coming together and are speaking the same language, and are, you know, working towards achieving a singular objective, which is to make sure that we're enabling access to this important antibiotic across GARDP territories is no mean feat. I think you know, these are some of the intangible aspects of a complex project like this, and I guess that is what I do in partnership with my colleagues Melynda, Monika, Manish ji, you, and several others, to kind of, you know, bring together that consensus and to be able and to always kind of, you know, keep reminding the group of what is our North Star, which is to make sure that this product is available as per timelines to the patients who need this product. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rahul. I have a couple of questions from the audience, which unsurprisingly are asking about stewardship and access, and how actually we are going to, how does it work? I'm looking at the question: how can medical practice stewardship move hand in hand with the enhanced access? How do we? And the other question was, how can we best navigate access to Cefiderocol in countries facing high burdens of resistant infections while ensuring that strong stewardship measures are in place to prevent further resistance. And I wanted to start with you, Monika, because I know that this is one of the areas which is close to your heart as well. So maybe you can share with us what are your expectations and what are your strategies.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the question. Stewardship and appropriate use are, in fact, very critical to this project. I'd even say that appropriate use is the overarching theme of some of our access efforts, because we want to ensure that we don't drive resistance with overuse and the right patients receive the right drug at the right time. We know that inappropriate use of an antibiotic can lead to resistance, and that if a product is not used properly, that it can even be detrimental to patient safety and how well a drug works for them. In addition to that, it takes a lot of time and resources for development of an antibiotic, and we want to make sure that the eventual end product is as useful as possible for as long as possible. So in this case, making sure that products are used appropriately will be very important. I'd say that this is a particularly challenging aspect of it, though, because ensuring that there is adherence to stewardship protocols and that products are used appropriately does take a lot of resources, and is kind of I think it's one of those issues where it's if you get it right in one place, you have to start all over again and figure out how to get it right in another place, because the capacity, training, and small p political support for strong stewardship and appropriate use programs can be variable from hospital to hospital, from region to region, and it can take time and education to establish within a healthcare system. This cuts a little both ways, because I think that does mean that this is an issue that we can have external stakeholders in other countries contribute to helping and ensure that appropriate use is in place. This can be things like countries working to develop guidelines on how to appropriately use reserve antibiotics. It can be things like ensuring that healthcare systems have the funding and reimbursement mechanisms in place to ensure physician buy-in, pharmacist buy-in, to support and stewardship programs and help disseminate best practices. And it might mean that perhaps there can be additional funding and support for diagnostic and laboratory capacity to ensure that we are able to identify what products are going to be most appropriate for patients at the right time. This is also an issue that we've been working on collaboratively within our project, and there have been several different efforts moving towards the same endpoint here. For example, GARDP has conducted a survey in several countries to better understand the hospital diagnostic capacity programs and what's available and where there might be gaps. There have also been some challenge set testing to better understand what resistance mechanisms are in what regions, so that we can better plan around what patients might encounter in those places. And say that perhaps this is something that we might get to a little bit later as well, but there's also the kind of stewardship of the manufacturing aspect, where one way to help reduce AMR is to strengthen responsible manufacturing of antimicrobials, and this can be done through adoption of things like the antibiotic manufacturing standard and certification through third parties. So I think several different avenues that we could go on this, and probably Rahul and Manish should be able to speak better to those.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monika. Thank you also for not only highlighting the medical aspects, but also the environmental component of the manufacturing. And that was, I remember, was one of the criteria also we used when we did the call for how do you say, the request for proposals, when we looked for a manufacturer, and we identified actually Orchid. Manish, I mean, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you about the environmental aspects, but also about how you, as the company who is manufacturing but also likely will distribute the product in India, is going to work on stewardship?
Yeah, so I'd like to say that Orchid Pharma is committed towards antimicrobial stewardship. As a responsible manufacturer of antibiotic, we are committed towards manufacturing standards of PNEC, the predicted no effect concentration level for the environmental discharge of the effluents. In fact, we follow a zero discharge policy. So none of the effluents from Orchid Pharma are actually discharged into the environment. Everything is getting recycled. When it comes to our stewardship initiatives in our sales and marketing, I'm happy to inform that we don't just have the pharmaceutical sales representatives. We also have in our sales team uh, um, a few physicians and clinical microbiologists, and their role is to handhold some of the small hospitals in India who do not have the antimicrobial stewardship program. So they do the training and they initiate the antimicrobial stewardship programs in these small hospitals, and then they carry out the audit of these stewardship programs so that some of these hospitals can graduate to a higher level of following the overall principles of stewardship. That's something we are doing in terms of our sales team. However, I mean, I'm a very serious believer of the fact that the future of antimicrobial stewardship will come from a digital solution. So I believe that a digital solution which can assist the clinician in the empirical therapy. That's when the wrong choice of antibiotic leads to the maximum development of resistance. So if there's a digital solution which can help the clinicians in decision making of the empirical therapy, and which can track the prescription and the outcomes, then that can probably generate the data that in the current environment of AI can be very useful, and it can probably predict the susceptibility of antibiotics into the future. I think some such digital solutions are probably the way to move forward, and happy to announce that Orchid Pharma is working towards developing one such solution. So we are really committed towards antimicrobial stewardship.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manish. I remember you showed us when we met last time in New Jersey. You gave us an impressive presentation on what you intend to do on stewardship. Rahul, Monika already mentioned that we as GARDP, you are leading not only the tech transfer project in the organization, but also what is going to translate into an access project in reality. So we are planning 3 studies, I know, in 3 different countries, and also an introduction project. So maybe you can share share what you are planning and what you expect to learn in terms of access and stewardship out of these studies and the project.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for asking that question. In fact, that is a key way in which we wish to understand how will Cefiderocol be actually used in a clinical setting in India, South Africa, and Brazil. India is very different from South Africa. South Africa is very different from Brazil, and again, Brazil is very different from India. And the objective behind introducing or setting up an introduction study in these 3 countries is to, in a near real world setting, utilizing product from Shionogi before Orchid product is actually available in these countries, is to, across a few key sites, really study how will this product be used. And we've been working with certain sites in these countries, with experts in the countries, to help understand what will be that template that could then be developed to introduce a reserve antibiotic, in this case Cefiderocol, in these countries. This works particularly well for a reserve antibiotic because it is expected to be used in an ICU setting largely, and hence we wish to understand what are the existing practices that are being followed by clinicians in these countries, what needs to change, or how do those practices need to evolve for them to be able to use cefiderocol in a stewardship-driven manner. And to that effect, we are working with these experts to also help develop what would be cefiderocol use guidelines that would initially be implemented in these sites, and then will hopefully inform the development of national or regional guidelines as well. So that's on the introduction study, which is a clinical study that we will be implementing. And then in a similar vein, we are also looking to do an introduction pilot project in Kenya, again in partnership with Shionogi, where across a couple of sites we're hoping to introduce cefiderocol, and really see how will the product be used in this setting. It is not a clinical study, but more of a implementation project, looking at piloting cefiderocol across ICUs in 2 to 3 facilities for a limited set of patients, and enabling experience for clinicians in these facilities, and then hopefully leveraging that experience or disseminating that experience and key learnings from that experience across a network of other hospitals in Kenya, so that when Orchid is ready to introduce the product and we have a commercial partner that registers the product in Kenya, we already have a network of hospitals in place that have the necessary understanding and information required to be able, and the experience required to use a reserve antibiotic like cefiderocol. And why are we doing all of this is because, we don't want cefiderocol to become the next carbapenem. Within 10 years of introduction in a country, you see more than 80% resistance to a product. And we don't want that for cefiderocol. We want to prolong its efficacy and for it to be effective for and useful for patients and clinicians alike. And these are some of the steps that we are taking to help facilitate that process.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. It's impressive. I think the number of the studies you want to do in parallel in South Africa, in India, in Brazil, these introduction studies. I know that you have identified the hospitals that will participate in those studies, and we have developed the protocol that we are hopefully going to finalize soon. I also and I really like what you said about the project in Kenya, because that is where we really also going to learn how is stewardship going to work in practice in that country, because as I can't remember, Monika, you said it can be very different from one setting to the other. So I hope that this is a good answer to the question on stewardship. I do hope that once we have started the project in Kenya and the studies in the other countries that we are going, that we'll be able to share much more practical experiences, actually, how it will work. I also wanted to tease out one other thing, that Rahul, what you're doing with PAHO on the challenge testing. Somebody mentioned it already, and I really like this collaboration with PAHO on the whole Latin American region, on what we are doing with them and why we are doing it.
Yes, indeed, Peter. And I wish I had some of my more technically competent colleagues to kind of talk a bit more about it, because I don't want to say something or butcher all the great work that they're doing. But I will make an attempt. So we are partnering with PAHO and specifically the Relavra network to conduct challenge set testing for cefiderocol. And the idea is to study how effective cefiderocol will be or is towards isolate or bacterial samples that have been collected across a number of countries within the Relavra network. And that is a project that my colleague from the R&D team, Renata, is leading. And those in the audience who are interested in learning more about the project, I would invite them to reach out to us, and we can hopefully talk a bit more about it in detail. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Rahul. I'm looking at my questions that I'm getting. There are a lot. Monika, I have a tricky question for you. I'm not sure you can answer it. Somebody is asking that I understand Shionogi has an existing supply chain for high-income countries. Does Shionogi intend to use the Orchid CMO to also supply high-income countries as a secondary approved supplier?
I think you're right. I don't know that I can answer that question. I think that's probably a future issue or a future question.
Yes, I do believe that people will understand, but nevertheless, I think it's a very good question. I also I'm looking at the questions. Manish, somebody is asking specifically how is the manufacturing different from Cefepime to Cefiderocol? I mean, I think you already spoke about it with respect to certain aspects, but maybe you can share a little bit more on why is this cephalosporin so much more complicated than the other ones you are producing.
Yeah, so like if you're talking about cefepime, it is or cefepime, that is just crystallized. It's an injection, yes, but that's just crystallized in a sterile environment in an API facility, and then after that, it goes through a dry powder filling. So it just gets filled into the vials to manufacture the injections, and there are multiple, numerous number of facilities which can do the dry powder filling of the sterile cefepime. Whereas for cefiderocol, as I mentioned, you need a vial lyophilization, and to the best of my knowledge, there are none available outside of Japan.
Thank you so much for a very clear technical answer. Maybe it's also you, Manish, who can answer this question. There is a medical doctor from India who is asking very specifically, how does cefiderocol differ from other beta-lactam antibiotics, and how its mechanism of action enhances its ability to overcome resistance? And the second question, and how does the temperature and light sensitivity impact its stability and effectiveness, and what are the challenges with respect to storage and transportation?
Honestly, I'm not sure I can answer that completely. From what I understand, it's different from other cephalosporins. Like it's a siderophore, so it has a better permeability into the cell membrane, and that's what makes it more effective. Where some of the other antibiotics get neutralized by the beta-lactamase inhibitors, it can probably overcome that challenge. With respect to the storage, I think once the injection is formed, it will be in a cold chain. It will definitely be a cold chain product, but not too low a temperature. It can be stabilized and it can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. And I think in today's environment in India, I can say there is a reasonable infrastructure to manage injections at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade.
Thank you so much. Anybody else wants to add something, or if not, then I have somebody asked about the regulatory pathway and what is going to come next. So I had two questions. One about PQ, how for which countries would require pre-qualification from WHO or not, and how we would manage actually a regulatory approval. I don't know who wants to go first. Melynda, do you want to share something?
Sure. I hope my background noise is minimized now. Yes, so definitely the intent is to pursue WHO pre-qualification, as has been mentioned and also noted in the video, that for the first time WHO has issued their expression of interest to ask manufacturers to submit applications for Cefiderocol. So that is, one of the first stages. I wouldn't say that there are countries that require WHO PQ, But there are some advantages to pursuing WHO PQ and then being able to participate in something like the collaborative registration procedure. All of that is done in an attempt to accelerate time to market. So we're really looking at strategies, working very closely with the regulatory work stream, which is led by GARDP, by our colleague Tammy, to make sure that any mechanisms that we can use to accelerate, we really investigate and make sure that, determine whether they're a viable pathway. I think, as Rahul had mentioned in his intro, there's also the intent to submit some filings simultaneously with the WHO PQ submission. And that overall strategy, overarching regulatory strategy, as far as those country submissions, where are they, when are they, is being led in the regulatory work stream.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying the role of PQ and also for mentioning the collaborative registration process of WHO. For those who are not so familiar, it is really, really interesting because it can facilitate a very fast approval in many countries, in particular in Africa, where otherwise you have to go actually country by country and submit a dossier. Here it would be WHO who facilitates actually the dossier submission with the individual regulatory authorities, and they promise that it is a much faster process. So I hope that we are going to test this out successfully. I'm sure people are interested because some from the audience are asking about access. What is the timeline, Rahul, for submission?
So, so we're hoping to submit an application to the Drug Controller General in India in late 2027, in mid 27, around the same time that we would be preparing for submissions in a few other countries as well, including trying to simultaneously prepare for and submit to PQ. So that is that's our plan for now as far as submissions go. I can talk about what is the typical time period that regulators undertake to evaluate applications and make a decision, which in the case of India can be anywhere between 12 to 18 months. Hopefully, with all the great work that we're doing, and we would be able to impress upon the regulator to maybe optimize this timeline as much as possible. But again, I think those are things that are beyond our control. What's in our control is to make sure that we are sticking to our timelines with respect to submitting the applications. And that's what we're planning to do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rahul. And I think it's important, and we hope that we are meeting these timelines. And as you said, afterwards, it is also dependent on how fast we can manage the regulatory approvals and PQ. I mean, there are so many questions coming in. I'm reading in parallel. I have one for you, Monika, because it's an interesting question. You will see. They're colleagues from Basilea, which is a Swiss company doing antibiotics and working on fungal infections as well. And they commend you for the tremendous investment you did and for the partnership. But they would be interested. They say it seems from what they hear that there are still significant costs to Shionogi to enable this access project. So they were wondering, how much is this, what is the investment that you are doing in this project? Because they say, well, not all companies have these resources, so it could be helpful for them to assess what does it take actually to engage in such a project. What kind of resources would they have to make available?
So I can't speak to any specific amounts, but I can say that I think the way that Shionogi has approached the project I think there's a scale of how much involvement a company can take in this type of project, and I think the kind of collaborative effort that Shionogi's been putting in is maybe different than a typical tech transfer collaboration or a typical tech transfer agreement. So, and that was that we determined that early on that we did want to stay involved, and hopefully that is beneficial. I think the resources that we've been dedicating have been around staying close to the tech transfer and making people available and to help with any technical questions. And obviously there have been face-to-face meetings with the key technical experts for tech transfer and manufacturing. We've stayed involved with the conversations around how we're approaching a regulatory strategy and some of the appropriate use and stewardship development plans. And so I'd say it has been, we're putting forward our human resources to make available to be participating in this program. And I think that, we'd be happy to connect with you separately, perhaps offline, about any kind of specific concerns that perhaps we can answer questions about. But I think it really is just a matter of, or for us, it has been kind of a concerted dedication to ensuring access globally and putting, making sure that we can help where we're able on this project.
Yeah, thank you, Monika. And I can just confirm that, I mean, you and your colleagues are investing considerable time and effort in making this happen. And I think it's a very good question. And I think it's also encouraging to hear that, other companies are looking at it and are thinking about, should we engage in similar projects? But they need to know, what does it take? How much engagement is required? And we know in particular in this area of anti-infectives, this is not Ozempic. Companies don't have actually so much revenue that they could easily spend a couple of millions on a tech transfer project. So thank you again. I think it's maybe also a good moment to thank our donors, because without our donors, we would not be able to run this project. It is because of their trust that we can actually invest our staff time and financial resources in doing it. And then, of course, I mean, Orchid is investing its own money actually in building these facilities, which is a considerable investment. And I think you're also taking risk. And I think that is something that is not it's not easy to find. I have a couple of questions that I hope that I can group them, and they are a little bit in the same, going in the same direction. Somebody said so I think we may have labeled it a trailblazing project to show proof of concept. So they were wondering when did we, when do we think we have actually showed proof of concept, and can then others follow this model or this template and do similar projects? And then we have also a question from a colleague from the Access to Medicines Foundation, Claudia Martinez, who is asking on how do we actually define success? What does it mean in this context? And how will actually impact be measured and reported? And what do we actually, what is the final thing that we want to achieve? Maybe I just throw it in and I let you, whoever wants to go first.
I can talk a bit about the trailblazing aspect of the project. I don't think we're blazing a trail as such. We are in a way trying to craft a path forward and hopefully develop a template or a strategy that could be applicable to other antibiotics and other anti-infectives. And we, in fact, have been learning with what has happened and what things that have gone right and things that have gone wrong in other therapy areas where similar projects have been implemented, including tuberculosis, where there has been a considerable amount of work that has already happened. So we're hoping to pass it forward, the knowledge and information that we have gained and the knowledge and information that we will develop as a part of this project pass it forward to others to take up and to learn from our mistakes, but also leverage our key learnings to be able to introduce anti-infectives and antibiotics in particular in the LMIC world. That is definitely the hope. In terms of how will we measure success, I think, I see 4 partners on this call, and whilst our North Star might be the same, which is to make sure that patients who need this product get access to this product across the low and middle income world, I think success is different, is defined differently for all of us. For GARDP, making sure that this product is available in a stewardship-driven manner across GARDP territories according to the timelines that we are currently working towards achieving will be a clear metric of success. I think that is what we're hoping to achieve. Also because I don't think, and I'm not an epidemiologist, so no one to comment on what are the tools or the applicability of such tools to really measure very concrete metrics around the success. But I think if we are able to make sure that this product is available across a bulk of those 135 countries that are part of GARDP's license, and we are seeing stewardship-driven adoption of this product, leading to the right patient receiving this treatment at the right time for the right duration in the right setting. I think that is what we can call a success. Thanks. But also over to the other colleagues to kind of talk about their measurements of success.
Yeah, I just like to add one small comment. I think there's no doubt about the fact that Cefiderocol is a life-saving drug. So I mean, if we have provided access to this product to the millions, then I think we can say with confidence that we've saved millions of lives. That's I think the measuring criteria for me.
Perhaps from our perspective, we like to celebrate the small successes as well. So every time we reach a target through the development, the excellent technical work that Orchid is doing, synthesizing and building the facilities and all of that, we like to definitely really call that out as well. But yes, I think the North Star is the same for all of us. It is about access. It is about, those most in need receiving this when they should, being able to receive it when they should. So yeah, it's the little things along the way that we also have to be mindful of, though.
Yes, and they are not so little, the things on the way. They are actually, we are celebrating every little obstacle we overcome on that way. Monika, please. Sorry,
Sure. And just to add to that, I think we will also, the success metric might also be additional follow-on products following maybe a similar path or a new path of their own that can build upon what we've done. So maybe opening the door more broadly to other antibiotic product access in LMICs.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a few questions, but I think we answered most of them. And I mean, one was about what can be done, recommendations for policy developers to incentivize this kind of projects. I think you need some funding. You need a committed company who has an interesting product who want to engage in the tech transfer and want to, as you pointed out, Monika, also invest, some in-kind resources at least. And then finding a company who can actually do the project is not so easy, in particular for this one. I mean, there may be other more, easier to formulate products where then you have a broader range of manufacturers who may be interested and capable of doing it. This is certainly a particularly complicated tech transfer project because of the specificities of the product. But I find it encouraging that so many from the audience actually asked about, how can we replicate I think for GARDP, I can also say that this is a big project for us. It's a very important project for us. It is a project which we really, with all of you, we want to make it happen. I don't think we would be able to manage more than this one if it's at this level of complexity. So I think at the moment it would be a subsequent. But we do hope that it is actually an example for others, and we would also, of course, be optimistic that we can expand this kind of activities at one point in time. Maybe, I think we have 3 minutes left. Anybody wants to say something that you have in your mind and you have not said yet? Because if not, then I would actually close the webinar soon.
Peter, if I may just say a very quick plug to all the partners. I think all the work that the Orchid team is doing in Chennai is very, very commendable. The work that Melynda is doing and her team is helping do on the CMC work front is again very, very commendable. But I think kudos to Shionogi, and in response to the question that you'd asked Monika earlier about what does it take, it takes a lot of time. It takes an incredible amount of patience, and I think we must congratulate our colleagues at Shionogi for all the effort and all the mentorship and guidance that we've received from them over the last few years for this project. And also, I think we're really hoping for this to be a pathfinder, and would be, very happy to talk about our learnings in much greater detail at appropriate forums in one-on-one conversations. So people from the audience, if they're interested and they want to learn more, feel free to reach out to all of us, and whatever we can share, we will share openly. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rahul. And just to encourage everybody, yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And then, as Rahul said, we will answer those that we can answer. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining. I hope this was interesting, and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.